You're listening to WKDW Radio 97.5 and KDWRadio.com, broadcasting from Northport, Florida, where it's still too damn cold for me, but hopefully we'll get some warmer weather and I can ride my motorcycle without having icicles fall off my face. But hopefully you guys will drive home, carefully drive home warm, and tonight just take it easy. Let's get home safe and keep everybody out of the hospital, so to speak, and in the warmth of their own home. So take your time getting home. It's very, very important. I've got really two really neat and fun guests on the show. One of my favorites, Mr. Jerome Fletcher, and then I'm going to let him do the honors of introducing his guest because she's never been on the show before, I don't believe. So let's start out with a quick intro to Jerome, and then we'll slide over to Vinnie.
All right. Thank you. Good to see you, John. Thanks for having me again. You know, I appreciate it. I always got a lot to say and glad you allow your listeners to hear me. So thank you for your time. This is Vinnie Mascarenhas. She is our Economic Development Manager. She's been with us now maybe 2 years.
A little over a year and a half.
A year and a half? Yes. And she does a phenomenal job, John. She has such a high level of energy. She completes her projects. She makes great relations with everyone she meets. She's bringing a lot of good things, interesting things to the city. And the city is going to be excited in 2024 when they see all that she's going to do.
Well, in the limited amount of growth we've had going on here, can you give your overview, Vinnie, of your perception of the last year and a half and how the family of Northport has kind of helped you get acquainted with your job?
Oh, absolutely. I've been working professionally for almost 24 years now. And I have to say that the culture and the environment here at the city of Northport is the healthiest I've ever been involved with. It's been an absolute pleasure. City manager sets a good tone and an outstanding example. And the leadership team that's here, folks that he's brought together, are invaluable resources have been for me coming on board and hitting the ground running and getting my finger on the pulse with the layout of Northport. It helps to be a resident as well, because we get to live it and we get to work it. But yeah, the team here is every director. I can call them up, and I do, and they'll share their depth of knowledge and lend their insight, and it's extremely beneficial.
How do you find that putting the city together as the pieces kind of fall into place? How does that all kind of come together in your mind?
Well, I would say it starts with our critical wet infrastructure, our roads, and our Unified Land Development Code. Those seem to be crucial elements for what the next 30, 40 plus years at this city are going to look like. And it absolutely cannot be ignored with the amount of growth that we are facing. And to be a part of a team that's getting out ahead of it, and we have a clear pathway forward for 2024, we are going to be ready. We are ready. We are going to be ready for what is coming.
And can you talk about the new things that are happening within the city that are out there that are coming right now that we don't see?
Sure, absolutely. And city manager can elaborate as well. So let's start at Sumter and I-75. That's our gateway corridor. Land on I-75 is very important because, especially if you're involved with logistics or distribution or any other targeted industry, being on Interstate I-75 and in Southwest Florida, with our proximity to deep seaports, with our proximity to airports, it's incredibly, there's a lot of opportunity there. So at Sumter and I-75, we know that Sarasota Memorial Hospital is planning on breaking ground on a 350,000 square foot facility hospital in 2025. And I believe that they are going to announce soon or have just announced who the general contractor, architect, and engineering services are going to be for that project. So working very closely with SMH, our development services department is master planning that activity center, the gateway corridor. And that master plan should be completed by the summer of this year. And it's going to really lay down the groundwork for secondary access, what the stormwater is going to look like, and what would benefit that area the best around SMH. SMH is going to bring in over 1,000 jobs at just that location alone. And 90% of our workforce today commutes outside of the city to go to work every day. Yep. So if we can work with Suncoast Technical College, if we can work with State College of Florida, that are all right here in Northport, to get our 16,000 school-age kids ready, if they want not just a job, but a career in healthcare, that they are trained, they are certified, and that we are able to not only live in Northport, but work in Northport, which is a huge quality of life indicator, and cut into that 90% of people that are commuting outside of our city.
Right. And I know that for a fact with STC, because my wife is a nursing instructor at STC. So that combination of STC, Sarasota Memorial, and the relationships that are built within the city to reach that potential growth of STC is even another huge factor for bringing more jobs and more adventure for our students to possibly stay local.
Absolutely.
So, I'm going to bring Jerome in for a second, and I kind of want you to highlight a little bit of the economic side of things on the commercial side, along with the changing with some of the commercial properties and mixed use zones. And I know there's kind of this struggle out there in the world to try to get some true understanding of it. Can you kind of highlight the reason why we need it and what we need to do to move forward?
Sure. Thank you, John. So very simply put, the more commercial we have, the more taxes and revenue they pay to the city, the less we have to get from our residents. That's just broken down in its simplest form. But what we want is, in addition to the commercial, in addition to the jobs, we got to bring in things that have activities for people to do. People want things to do here. And so when you hear us talk about bringing in things like we're trying to bring in an entertainment venue, we need somewhere where we can have small concerts, some sporting events right here in Northport, not travel up and down the highway. Those things are important to us. We need more walkable areas in this area, and we're working on that. If you think about over in the Toledo Blade and Price area, the little Coke Bottle Lake behind that shopping center, we're trying to develop that into a commercial area. In that same area, we're putting a YMCA over there, which should be announced fairly soon, which will have more activities for, of course, daycare opportunities and youth activities. So the commercial and the build out of everything that we need only enhances the value of the city. It brings more people in for things to do. It brings in more revenue, but you have to do it in a responsible way. So when you hear about the ULDC and the rezoning and everything that we're trying to update, this code is 30 years old. And it should have been updated a long time ago. And now we're doing it. And it is painful to go through some of the process, but we are listening. We've got a lot of information up on our website. We've taken a lot of questions. We've had in-person meetings. We've done a lot. And I don't think there's a way to get it perfect, but we want to make sure that we get it as best as we can by continuing to listen until the commission gets to the project of adoption, which should be in a couple of months.
And I'm going to couple that over to Vinnie real quick. That the mixed use and the commercial changes that are going on, how does that fit in with the economic development of the city as far as you're concerned?
Oh, absolutely. If you want to have more restaurants and more entertainment and nice retail and all that comes around it, then the people that are working there are going to need a place to live. And also people that will be staffing the hospitals that are coming. Not everybody wants to live in a single family home. And if you have that multifamily additional options, like apartments, condos, townhomes, it becomes much more attainable, the housing options. Gives people more options on where to live. And then, when you start integrating that, with maybe some businesses on the first floor and some condos or lofts on the second floor, then you really start to see your options open up as well. It opens it up for entrepreneurs. It opens it up for our workforce. And it's not something that happens overnight. I mean, it takes, maybe 15, 20 years for those things to start to unfold. But certainly to have the city's eyes set in that direction and that pathway forward, it's an important step. And our commissioners understand that. Our residents are weighing in on that, and they're actively involved. And that's what we're working towards.
So some of the things that are out there that really, as a realtor and realtors around the city and other cities know, mixed use is a huge, it's a good piece of language to have with a piece of property. People get scared off with that word mixed use. Can one of you kind of take the helm there and describe the mixed use status and why that is important for pieces of property around the city?
Yeah, it's we're looking at mixed use 1 and mixed use 2. And you can think of, I mean, we're not planners, and certainly you should talk to our development services department, because that's where the tacticians and the experts in this are. But mixed use 1 can sort of be thought as an integration into a more higher intensity density of mixed use 2. And certainly with only 8% of our land zoned commercial, and if you were going to be looking at a full build out of over 250,000 residents you want to have like 25-30% of your land commercial. That is a standard best practice that is nationwide. And we've got to, this ULDC is aiming to get us at around 19%, which is a step in the right direction, but it doesn't get us all the way there. Yeah, we're looking to get there.
And I think, John, when most people hear mixed use, they think, oh my goodness, here this business is going to come in and disrupt my living patterns. And you can do it in a responsible way. You have ordinances, codes, and things to protect the residents. But ultimately, the benefit there is you're combining and you're like killing two birds with one stone if you can make it work to where it's not disruptive for the lifestyle. But we want to encourage that mixed use and that commercial into the city. And this is something new for the residents. So we have to be patient while they understand, get to an understanding of what the ultimate benefit and outcome is. You just have to have patience and you have to educate.
Well, and I go with that mixed use 1 for a minute, because the mixed use 1 seems to really scare people, because I guess if you really wanted to break it down on a level of awareness, we really don't have a lot of mixed use properties in the city of Northport now. So
That's right.
For a newer city, it is a new topic.
That's right. That's right. And we have to be aware of that. Everyone who's here hasn't been other places or even lived other places where they've seen it down the street or in their neighborhood or close to where they reside. So they think that, wait a minute, now you're going to have all that traffic, all that noise, all that congestion, near me, and it's going to make my home either less valuable or even I don't want to be there. And that's not our intention. Our intention is never to do that. And the biggest thing I try to get people to understand is, if other cities can do it and they've been successful, and I don't mean big cities, I mean cities of all sizes, if they've done it and can be successful, you can do that here in Northport too. You just have to do it the right way. But I understand their concerns. Well,
don't we have that to the north and the south of us right now?
I've seen it to the north and south of us, but not everyone has. But,
right,
exactly. But you can do it.
I guess the point to that is it is happening around us, and until we kind of get the information out there and try to break some education barriers, so to speak, down, we do have that little bit of confusion on what's going to happen.
True. People are always going to fear the unknown. And, we try to guide them as well as we can. But also, I know that the community has come to us in situations and said, hey, you have this slotted for mixed 1 or 2. And the commission has made changes based on that feedback. So their feedback is important. And we try to make sure that we listen to all of it. And not all of it results in changes to the pathway, but some of it has. And so that's what the collaboration process looks like.
Well, and I'm going to put this up there. It's from Gigi Lookoff. And she says the problem is we don't want it. No rezoning.
Well, there's no way not to rezone it because the ULDC has to be updated. It's a code that's 30 years old. It does not allow us to make the best decisions and movements within that current code. So the code has to be done regardless. And it definitely shouldn't be done every 30 years. It should be done in a process that's quicker than that. And as far as we don't want it, the citizens that we hear from, they do want this place to be rezoned. They do appreciate the growth that we're doing. They do appreciate the value of having other activities and businesses here in the city, so they don't have to go out of the city for those things. They do understand that their millage rate and property tax are affected by the other businesses or residents in this city that help absorb some of that cost. So we do believe that it is something that the majority of people want.
We get calls every day, almost every day in economic development from businesses that are here, that their families are here, their customers are here, they staked their flag here in Northport, and they're looking to scale and grow because they're booming, they're flourishing. They want to expand their products or services. And our vacancy rate for commercial space is less than 1%. And that's not just a Northport problem, that's a problem in this region. And we have got to allow for more opportunities, or we're going to lose the businesses that have been here. Our manufacturers are bursting at the seams. Just drive down Commerce. They're running out of space. And if we want to keep them here and keep the jobs here and continue to grow responsibly, we've got to meet them where they're at.
And to Gigi's point,
go ahead.
To Gigi's point, everyone doesn't want growth here in this city. And I've been here for a little more than 2 years now, and that ship had already sailed by the time I got in here. So there's no putting it back. There's no unwinding it and putting it back into the box. The best thing to do is to do it responsibly going forward to make sure that you make the best decisions that are going to harm the least.
Isn't that why the ULDC is being rewritten, is to give that guideline?
It will. It will give a better footprint for us to accomplish the best ways for the city to grow. There's so many outdated restrictions in it and things that don't sort of match up with each other, that contradict each other, that if we don't fix it, we're never going to get it right. So the reason why we're doing it now is because it is a hard process, and people have kicked it down the road for years and years, but now we're redoing it, and then that way we'll at least be up to date, and then we can sort of update it as we go instead of letting huge amounts of time lapse.
And I'm going to put this up. It was Dana King Lawton. She says those who want rezoning obviously don't live in a neighborhood that might be affected. Can you kind of? I know that's kind of a broad stroke of a brush across.
Yeah, that's just a big statement. But neighborhoods that have been affected, like I said, they have come in and talked, and we've had conversations about where those lines are drawn and where those different distinctions are met. But to say that, there's always going to be something near a neighborhood. There's always rules and noise and ordinances that you can make to make sure that you don't disrupt people in their living lifestyle.
And so I'm not gonna put it up on the screen, but I'm kind of gonna highlight something that Gigi is a follow-up that she made, which is that the people who don't want the growth. I know that there's those people, there's those groups out there that they pound the desk and say, stop. And I've been here since 2000, and I've watched the city grow and kind of take on a feeling of its own from what we had 20 years ago. 2000, we looked a whole lot different in 2000 than we do 23 years later. And I think we're going to see a much faster increase of difference in the next 10 years of what we look like today.
You are.
And if we don't have some sort of, there was a really good coach, recently retired, Nick Saban, who said to the NCAA, we need guardrails. We need to understand the guardrails to the NIL. Well, don't we need guardrails like the ULDC to kind of keep us on track of building the city the right way?
Absolutely.
And so if these people that are frustrated, Gigi and Dana, if you're frustrated with it, my question would be to you back. Are you part of any organization that's really addressing the ULDC and answering those questions and working with maybe the Chamber of Commerce or different organizations out there that are helping craft these things? Because there is involvement right now from the community on crafting the ULDC. And Jerome, can you talk about the importance of the relationships of those organizations that are working with the city to try to come up with a plan for the future?
Yeah, sure. So everyone who we speak to do not always agree with what the city is doing. And this is a perfect example. And it doesn't mean that we're not listening or hearing you. It means that we are having conversations about what is happening today, what next 5 years, 10 years, 50 years is going to look like. You have a city that you're projecting to be 250,000 people here in the next, decade plus. How do you expect to be able to sustain the financial success of the city if we do not follow a more up-to-date zoning procedure that will allow us to maximize our space here? If we say, okay, we're going to raise the millage rate and everyone's going to pay more, they don't want that. Well, we're going to raise our revenues and fees so that, they hurt other people. They don't want that. There's no easy or good way other than to talk, listen, and partner and work some things out. But if people come to the table and they're willing to come to the table and talk to people, I think that's how you can be successful. But
well, do you know if we have do we have a city around us that has said we're not going to grow, we're not going to do these things, and we're not going to raise your taxes? Do we? I'm not trying to be facetious. I don't, as a realtor, I don't know of a group or a city that has anything like that.
I would say even cities that are mostly built out are still making tweaks and changes here and there. The thing about Northport that makes it unique is that we are going through a growth spurt now that other cities have already gone through. They've already been through this part of their life cycle. We're 65 years old. We're just now going through this life cycle. And to be honest with you, you should have gone through it 30 years ago, 20, 30 years ago. But you had people in positions that were not willing to move the city forward at a rate that would have stayed ahead of what we are doing today. So now we're having to come back and do a whole lot of things at one time. But that's just the way that it is. I mean, you can't go back and fix it. You can just make sure that you do it responsibly going forward. Because even with all this growth and what we're doing, we still hear, well, you're not taking care of the environment, or you don't care about the trees. And here we added the Natural Resource Division to show our commitment to our natural resources and our environment and our wildlife. So we can only do the best with what we are doing right now and make it so that we show people that we are growing in a responsible manner.
Well, and Gigi, I'm just doing a quick follow-up here again.
Yes. Thank you,
because I don't think we're ever going to convince her that growth in a reserve sort of way is a good way. And she is she puts down that she's from Sarasota. So knowing that you're from Sarasota, we're never going to look like Sarasota. And I made the statement the other day that it was Sunday afternoon at 2:00. I literally made 4 U-turns on Toledo Blade without oncoming traffic. I went down 41, and I used to work at Sarasota Memorial, and we, on a Sunday, don't feel like anything like Sarasota downtown right now. And that's we're never going to be that type of city.
We're not. And we're never going to be the sleepy bedroom community that we were 20 years ago either. No. So somewhere in the middle is where we will lie. But there are people who I hear from them often who say that they moved here because of what we were, that small, sleepy town. And for those people, the only thing I can do is apologize for where we're going, because the ball was already set in motion years ago. This is not a current administration thing here. It's not a current commission thing. The ball was already set in motion, and we're just taking the ball and making sure that we do the best with it.
I think it's also important to point out that Northport's open space and parks, it's about 30% of our total land, give or take. We have the entire Mayaca Forest. We have Warm Mineral Springs. We have Orange Hammock Preserve. And when I was talking with another city about this just the other day. Instead of working a lot in redevelopment, because of our thousands of acres of undeveloped land, we're working with developers on original development.
Correct.
And when they talk with us and meet with us, for the most part, along with what's being tied into the ULDC, the new Natural Resources Division, they understand, and they're doing what they can to make sure that it's beautiful, that there is open space, that there's connectivity. We have the Legacy Trail connector. We want to connect it even further. And that's important, that curb appeal and that quality of life. It's important to maintain, and it's something that we're working towards as well.
Well, the fact that you're involved, Gigi, I love the fact that you're taking part in
I
it.
hope Gigi sits on one of our advisory committees, because there are some vacancies.
Yes.
You should go to the website and get involved in an advisory committee, and then you can really help shape and mold what this city's doing.
Bring your voice.
And we've talked about that on this show, because if talking about what you want and actively playing a role in what's coming are two different things.
Yes.
And I'm going to ask, it's going to sound like a really bad question. I want to stop growth. How do we do it? Are we in a position, are we as a city, are we truly in a position just to say no more growth?
No, like I said earlier, John, you can't put that genie back in the bottle. It's already begun. And if you can't stop it, then you need to figure out how to get on board with it and have, which, like you said, an impact in the outcome by having your voice heard, whether it's an advisory committee, whether it's talking to your commissioners and making sure that things that we are not thinking about that you are heard. That's how you make a difference.
So I'm gonna go out 5 years from now, and I'm gonna say you're both gonna get a promotion somewhere else. A new person coming here wants to put the genie back in the bottle. I just don't. I've never heard of a city stopping growth.
Right.
And I've never seen a new city develop like this one. I've always lived in cities that were already there. You talked about that growth before, and it was renourishing what you already had. It was taking the old 41 and saying, listen, you have to update, you have to clean it up, you have to come up to code. We do not have but a small section of that. Everything is brand new. Everything has to be built out. So it almost feels like every time we grow, we're ripping the trees out. We're building, and people have that feeling of, oh my God, look at us, we're changing. Where essentially those pieces aren't even owned by the city. They're commercial pieces.
Certainly, but well, I'm sorry.
Right, no, go.
we do have in our ULDC and in the rewrite incentives and rules for these developers to make sure. I mean, here's an example. In Welland Park, they saved many of the beautiful oak trees because oak trees give off great shade, and those oak trees have been integrated as into a center part of areas where the community gathers, and they get enjoyed by everybody. That's a best practice, and that's something that we're working with developers to make sure that they look out for that, for the buffers, for the canopy cover, for saving trees that can give off shade or have been there for a while. That's all being worked in. They're going to be held accountable. And sorry. So,
and John, back to your point of, if we weren't here, that would stop the growth. We are growing the city here, if you're talking about me and Vinnie, because we are following the vision of the commission, which has the leadership to tell us what to go to do. If they wanted someone to not grow the city, then they would have said that when they were looking to hire someone. I had economic development experience and they wanted to grow. And so we came and we latched on together, and that's how we make a good team going forward. Now, if I were here and they changed their vision, then I would change my vision to meet theirs. And if I didn't like it, then I would go, if they didn't like it, et cetera. Sure. But you have to understand that, we work together to execute on that vision. And if you don't execute on a growth vision, that means everyone who is here is going to have to pay more to be here. And then it's going to be financially unsustainable for those same people who don't want the growth. They'll be forced out and pushed out due to how much everything is going to cost.
Well, I'm glad you brought in the commissioners, because there are 5 sitting commissioners. They hired you. You've hired Vinnie, correct?
Correct.
And we have a different flow within our city than a lot, like the city of Columbus, where I came from. We have a mayor. We don't have anybody else other than the mayor telling us what to do.
Yes.
And I'm going to tell you, when you disagree with a mayor who is not doing what you want, that's worse than what we got now. At least
you can forget it. Right. A strong mayor form of government is a challenging form of government, and I've worked in a strong mayor form of government, and I don't believe politics should rule the day-to-day operations of local government. It's just not the way that it should be. If the people here complain about what they perceive to be our elected officials having other interests or other people to please, how in the world do you think one person is when they have all these people who they know who got them in to please? It's not the best form of government for local government.
So I've got a question from Sean Kirkpatrick. We do a podcast about high school sports on Tuesdays called Bobcat Blitz. What incentive did the new apartment complex on Sumter across from Dunkin' Donuts? The property was clear cut. Is there a mitigation bank that they had to buy into or put money into when they clear cut the trees?
They were not given an incentive. They most likely had to abide by our tree ordinance, which then caused them to pay for the trees that they removed versus the ones that they kept. But it's not an incentive. It's just our code and what we charge people for when they do those types of actions, which has led to the tree fund, which has led to how we support the Natural Resources Division. But it's not an incentive. It's their property.
And go back to that for a second, because I think that messes with people a little bit too. I'm not sure if it's Gigi's issue or on the growth side of things, but these apartment complexes that are coming here, they weren't coming here 23 years ago because we didn't have the need. We are stripped of housing. We're literally sitting at about a 2 to 3 month inventory on resales, and we can't get enough housing.
Correct.
Let alone workforce housing.
Right.
Because that's that statement, workforce housing, is in so much trouble right now. It's not funny for the working class. I know that because I sell for a living. 10 years ago when I was selling, not an issue.
Right.
Today, massive issue. If we don't keep our workforce here and working, who's going to work at these jobs that, at Publix and PGT and all these places? They're not going to be able to afford to stay here.
Right. And we need all types of housing: single family housing, multifamily housing, affordable housing, attainable housing. We need a lot of that. And currently our ULDC is not written in our favor to establish those types of housing situations, which is why we're redoing the ULDC. It all ties in together, of what we're doing and why we need to do it. But at the end of the day, at the very end of the day, we want people to understand that we care about their quality of life. We care about today, tomorrow, and the future. And that means making decisions today that are hopefully benefiting the most and explaining what we're doing so that we show everyone that we want them to live in this city for as long as they would like.
And I will say this, is that Sarasota County as a whole and Charlotte County as a whole, even DeSoto, if you have done any driving over the last decade, you've seen massive changes in every single one of those counties.
Right.
If you do it throughout the state, the growth is not just in Northport. It's being done massively in the whole state.
Yes. But again, if I bought my house here or if I moved here because I didn't want to go through any of that, and I thought that's how it was going to stay, then the city owes them an apology, because that's not the way that it's going to stay. And however long they've been here, if they've been here and they've seen the growth, they say, okay, well, it's going to just keep going. But if I got here 10 years ago and it was a little slower, and now here 10 years later, you're at 85,000 people and you're telling me that you're going to be at 100,000 people in the next 2 years. That's not what I wanted. And that's how some people feel. And I understand that because they may have based their retirement lifestyle or their future lifestyle on that thought, but it's not accurate to believe that we could stay with the pace that we're growing.
And the people that are moving here are getting younger and they're getting more affluent. So right now, I mean, with Redfin's numbers that came out for 2023, we are sitting at 90,000 residents. I mean,
easy.
There's no doubt about that. And so we're going to hit that 100,000 MSA within the next year and a half to 2 years. And our AMI is already at 69, maybe 70,000. When it hits 100,000 residents, when we hit 75,000 on the average median income, you pop up more on site selectors' radars. And you're going to see more of that retail, more of that dining wanting to come here just because of the population that we hit and the average median income that we hit. So master planning, rewriting the ULDC will get us ready and well prepared to bring in what we want and not just let whatever comes here happen. We play more of an active role when we set ourselves up for success.
Well, and I'm going to slide this right back to you too, because if you look at what we do have here, the car parts, the mattress stores, everybody picks on those, and everyone says, why is the city commission allowing that to happen?
Don't forget the car wash.
Yeah, the car washes. Yeah, the car washes too.
Right.
Even the coffee shops. Sorry, even the coffee shops.
Even the coffee shop?
Who doesn't like a coffee shop?
I haven't heard about that one. Who eats coffee? Right.
I need a coffee now. We went from not having a Starbucks to seeing Starbucks grow everywhere.
Oh,
and
right.
And it's good.
Los Cristianos, John.
Yes, Los Dos is.
We love our local.
Yep, our
Yeah.
local people. They do a great job, and they're right near me, right outside of Lakeside Plantation. So I love going there. They do a great avocado toast too. But on top of that, you look at some of this. You're not to blame for that growth,
right?
But we are wrapping our arms around the fact that we have that growth coming because those are signals that other things are to follow.
Correct.
Yes.
And so we hear about car washes, and most people know that there's a lot of homes here on well water, and you can't use well water to wash their car in their home. So what do? They need to go to a car wash. And then storage buildings, and we get talked about that a lot, about storage buildings. And then people who use their garages for storage, they don't have storage. So what do they need? They need a storage building. Businesses don't have storage space. So what do they need? They need storage spaces. So it's not to a fault that we have those items. Those items will continue to come here. We just want more of different diversity of businesses to come here as well. And that's what we're focused on.
And back to Sean, he said, one of the problems I hear is our housing has practically tripled in value, assessment, and insurance, but it doesn't feel like the great things a city has to offer have tripled. Tough conversations. Glad I'm not having to figure it out. Thank you all for what you're doing. That there is a lot to be said within that conversation just now, is because we do have all those things happening to us. And yet at the same time, we have to look prospectively down the road. And I think you're right, Vinnie. I think within a year, we're going to hit 100,000. Yeah. And if we get any type of shift in interest rate at all,
yes,
we could be at 105,000 in a snap of your fingers.
Right.
And because we are highlighted everywhere as one of the fastest growing, one of the innovative, fastest growing cities in the state. We're also inside Sarasota County. We're also accessible to multiple airports and beachfronts. We've got sun seekers down south of us now, which it doesn't feel like that should be an attachment that we should be able to wrap our arms around. But sorry to say, workers have to work there too. And that's a high-end resort that's changing their environment on the water, which also changes workforce housing for all.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
We've got a redistribution of people from Fort Myers Beach And those loss of jobs, those loss of housing, I talk about that in great length with people when they talk about how's it affected us here. Those workers and those houses, all those things had to be reconfigured somewhere up and down the coast because they're growing there too, but they're having the same problem. Housing can't keep up with the demand. And unlike Fort Myers, we don't have a lot of the apartment complexes that they had to take in a lot of those people. They're at max now.
Right.
We're looking at workforce housing in a completely different manner. It was almost as if the Toledo Bay Club was it. I mean, we had a couple smaller ones, but when you take reality and you take reality in the working class, not the retired class.
Right.
If you're looking at the younger working class, where are they going to go live other than with their mom and dad? Because they can't afford, unless they're going to live with 3 or 4 people in the same house, which has been done.
Yeah.
But we're not talking small numbers anymore. We're talking mass numbers. Everybody's having to stockpile to make ends meet. And yes, while you adapt, if the workers are adapting, our city's trying to adapt to the need too. And responsible adjusting is a factor. We all want the city to grow. I really haven't heard any family out there that said, you know what, we don't want anything else for our kids to do here. Right. Sorry, we have nothing for kids to do here other than our great park system, other than our great aquatic center. Take our parks and our aquatic center away, and then find out what the kids are going to go do. Take away the sports fields. Take away all the things that keep those kids entertained.
Right, and out of trouble.
And we're talking about the city of Northport are the ones stepping up to do that. We're not talking to businesses out there that have come in town yet and done that. Once we hit that 100,000 head count, they are going to change. Things are going to be looked at different.
Right.
Go ahead.
Use Costco as an example, because everyone's excited that Costco is coming. Do you think Costco would come if those homes weren't built in the last couple of years to put the people in this city that makes them want to go shop at Costco? Costco wouldn't have come. You have to, if you have to keep growing, and then your growth gets recognized, as Vinnie said earlier, and then different diversity of businesses will want to come here, which is what we're trying to do. We're trying to capitalize on our momentum right now, because everyone wants to be here. We're excited that they want to be here. The whole country is looking at us, and we want to bring the right mixture here so people can stay within the city boundaries of Northport and get everything they need without having to go up and down the highway.
And I don't know if you have an update on this, but Sean is involved in the athletics over at the high school, and we've talked about the Morgan Center and the flooring there. Do you know where we're at with the flooring and in that scenario right now?
Yeah, so the flooring is actually ready to be put in, but the air conditioning that was damaged during the hurricane was not repaired. Well, could not be repaired. And then it's like a year from now to get a permanent system in there. We're trying to work on getting a temporary solution in there, temporary air conditioning that will allow the floor to come in and be sealed correctly. Otherwise, it would tear up fairly soon. So that's in front of the commission, and we're going to discuss that on Tuesday. If they give us the blessing for the temporary air conditioning units, then we will move forward with getting it installed, which will be, I think, don't quote me if I'm wrong, between the next 30 to 60 days ish.
Nice.
But yeah, we're trying to work on it. That is, it's such a terrible shame that floor has been gone for so long.
And do you know why it took so long to get, again, from Sean, why it took so long to get a temporary solution for that?
I think it was just based on timing of other needs of everyone who had damage from Hurricane Ian around here. I don't remember anything specifically holding it up.
All right, and you know that the Morgan Center, it's not a small building, so I'm sure that there's commercial entities that have to come into play for an AC unit that size.
Yes, these aren't things that you find every day on the street. It's provided by limited providers to do the floor and the air conditioning.
Sure. And so, as far as the economic side of things, Vinnie, where do you see 24 taking us in Northport?
What we're focused on in 24 is bringing in end users for the innovation corridor that will help us meet the jobs growth grant, exceed it, to be quite honest with you, in our targeted industries. So we're talking about manufacturing, corporate headquarters, healthcare, logistics and distribution. These sort of industries bring in jobs that pay really, really well. So in 24, we're going to be going after site selectors and that specialize in those industries from around the nation. We're already starting to schedule inbound missions around that. We're marketing Northport nationwide on that front. Those end users are going to be key because what bubbles up around them, along with quality jobs that will allow somebody to live and work here in Northport. You get startups, you get research and development, you might get an entrepreneurship center, the kind of end users that come in and make a real footprint and invest in your community. We're also focused on business retention and expansion. So the businesses that we have here that we love and care so much about, that they stay here. And if they're looking to offer a new product or service or scale and grow, or if they have workforce needs, making sure that we stay very close to them. We just hired a business retention and expansion coordinator. He's chipping away at site visits with all of our businesses every week. He's doing 4 or 5 of them. It keeps him very busy. He connects them with our local partners like SCORE, like the SBDC, like our chamber, like Career Source, that they specialize in helping local businesses, whether they need financing or their business plan, or they need help with employees. These organizations can help. Also, every quarter, we host a quarterly business welcome event. I've worked in municipalities and for counties in the past. This is the first time I've worked at a city that does this. So city manager, our commissioners, we come to City Hall and we invite the new businesses that open their doors in the city over the past quarter. All of our partner organizations attend. It's ceremonial, but it's also real. They get a chance to meet and shake hands with the folks that they might not need right now, but they will, especially if their business continues to do well. It's kind of like a newcomer day for businesses. And it's been very well received, and it's something that we're going to keep going. Last quarterly business welcome event that we did, 75 new businesses had opened their doors in the city of Northport. It's not slowing down. It's complementing the residential growth. People want to move here and they want to work for themselves, and we are an entrepreneurial friendly city.
Very much so, and you know we're also busting at the seams for lack of space for that. You know, you want to slow things down. Talk to the commercial developers that are out there and tell them not to build it. The reason that they are building it is the minute that they get the building done, their buildings are full.
Right.
We're literally, I don't know. I think there's maybe 1 or 2 buildings or 1 or 2 sites that are empty in Northport, in the city.
Right.
I mean, to me, it's how you tell how a city's going is looking at commercial and residential. Our residential is not run down. We're not, looking at demise in our neighborhoods. Our commercial pieces are old in some spaces and upgrading, and our newer spaces are building and completing and filling. And we have more being developed because there's a calling for that. And one of the things that I think tip people's hands the most about an up and coming city is that when the residential side gets hot and then it catches forest fire red, and you can't slow the residential side down. Commercial follows it.
Right.
This doesn't follow it as fast. But when commercial catches fire and the sustainability of residential stays lit, commercial then becomes the hottest commodity in that city, which if we don't have it to offer, the only other option is higher taxes. Isn't that conversion important for us, Jerome?
Well, I think you just explained it pretty well.
It's pretty good, John.
Right. I don't know if I can say anything better than that. The two go hand in hand. And, when we talk about, the commercial and the residential following each other, you want to be a complete and balanced city. You don't want to have too much. Well, we were known, from what I was told before I got here, for a while as the affordable housing capital of the county, or the cradle of the county. And is anything really affordable anymore? And now, prices of everything and everywhere have gone up. So, we can't even hold on to that tagline anymore. And all the residential homes that we have to have commercial to offset for the people who are here. That was fine when we were 20, 30,000 people in a city. It was a lot different things to budget and a lot less services to provide. And now that we have all the people, we have to make sure they have quality services and they want to live here. We want their property values to triple, as the gentleman, I believe, said earlier, which is a great thing. But with those things come other new things. And that's just the way that it is. The thing that I would be concerned about is you were bringing all this commercial and new homes in and my property value was going down. I'd be like, well, wait a minute, what's going on? That's not what I want. And that means you better keep crime away and make sure that people have activities to do. And that's the quality of life that we're trying to make sure that we bring to this city. And no, we are not saying that we have every great idea and we get it right every time on the first time. We make mistakes every single day, but we try to learn from them and not make the same mistake every single day. But what we're doing right now, the growth, the economic development, is vital to the future of the city. This year, 2024, will be the most important year in the history of the city of Northport. Watch and see.
And I tend to agree with you on that. 23 years of being here, I'm not always I'm not always on the side of the city. I'm not. Right. There are things that I disagree on. And I think that's being a great citizen of the city. You have got to have a balance of people who don't like certain things and who do like certain things. I just happen to understand the potential growth side of things. I look at the growth of the city, and you threw something in the mix that is very important. That people are in other cities are not so appreciative of. We have a really low crime rate in our city. We have a great fire department who is scattered strategically throughout our city to keep our ratings high and our insurance rates low. There are places that you can go to, our neighbors the south of us, that if you move into the wrong spot, you have a higher insurance rate because they haven't strategically built correctly yet. We are doing those things to keep those ratings and be, I think, good stewards of future growth.
Correct.
And the police department keeping the crime rate down, and the fact that we're proactive, working with the schools and staying involved there, and kind of squashing the event that took place at Toledo Blade and Price, where people from another community came up and decided they were going to do spin outs and
too fast, too furious.
Yeah. Here's the beauty in that is our police officers were on task and defended our city and took care of business, and within days knew what was going on, and took care of that. So we have a lot to be proud of, and I'm glad that you guys were part of the show, and I hope you enjoyed it, Vinnie. It's your first time, and I know that Mr. Fletcher over there, he's a fan, but I know that he's used to a lot of structure, and we had a lot of questions. So I appreciate you guys being on the hot seat too.
It's been great.
It was great. Thanks for having us. Can't wait to be back.
You guys, thanks for being part of it. Please watch this back. Share this information out. I'm glad that everybody asked questions and got involved. I love the fact that people were asking questions. If we don't share this information out, correct information can't get spread. Let's stop the nonsense of false information and really try to be good stewards ourselves and get the positive word out. Even if you don't like some of the answers, they are the right answers. you can always get a hold of these two and have a conversation, schedule some time, and maybe come to understanding. But thank you guys for being part of the show. And this is Real Talk. John Rawlings, along with Vinnie and Jerome Fletcher. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate it.
You got it. Thank you.
Bye-bye now.